This is part 3 of the little presentation. This is the final part of our discussion on Sri Brahma Samhita. We'll start with our Pranam mantras to Prabhupada. You can say with me, please. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatadine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I think a little review is required because some of you weren't with us, part 1 and part 2. The decision to go, or the choice to go spend a few classes with Sri Brahma Samhita, had everything to do with Bhaktisiddhanta, because Bhaktisiddhanta's 150th appearance day was last week, Thursday, and kind of got tuned into what the Naperville Temple was doing for that whole month preceding his appearance day. Every evening class was on Bhaktisiddhanta. And so with that mood, Bhaktisiddhanta, as the one who presented in English for our benefit, Sri Brahma Samhita. So the first class was a kind of introduction to the book, and the second class was the beginning part of verse 1 of the book. We heard yesterday this term. It may not be new to you, Paribhasha Sutra. Sutra we all know, meaning Paribhasha Sutra is a term that Jiva Goswami used, and then in turn other acharyas have used. And who remembers, those who attended the yesterday evening class, who would like to say a sentence, 2 or 3, about what a Paribhasha Sutra is? Who remembers? Loud enough so we can all hear. Yes. And say it the other way around. The other way around is, if you have an understanding about some other part of the book, that understanding must match or be in alignment with the Paribhasha Sutra. And if you derive any other understanding, you got some homework to do. So it governs. It's an essence that governs all the others. So this first verse is such a verse. We talked a little bit about what that means and its role in Scripture in a general sense. Not always. Here's a nice question. What's the Paribhasha Sutra for Bhagavad Gita? Normally, the answer is, normally such a verse comes towards the beginning. This is one of the, not a rule, but that's the common procedure for those who are authors of books. It goes towards the beginning. And in Bhagavad Gita, it's Sarvadharmam Parityaja. That's towards the end. but it's still governing. Every other verse in Bhagavad Gita must be in alignment. Understanding must be in alignment with that verse. So it's a very important verse. And we spent some time with it, and now we're going to go a little bit further into the verse. The painting is the dawn of creation, where before there was even creation. It's just Garbhodakshay Vishnu and the Garbhodak ocean, that's the waves that you see below. From his navel grew a lotus stem and then a lotus flower, and then Brahma appeared. Here's a detail. It's within the text of Brahma Samhita itself. And its expanded version is in the second and third canto Srimad Bhagavatam. So from second and third canto Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a sequence, a chronology of creation. Mahavishnu glances over Pradhan. By his glance over Pradhan, his internal potency, Ramadevi, recognizes his desire. He doesn't ask her for some service, she just knows what to do. So she, Ramadevi, his internal potency, his spiritual potency, did two things. With the glance of Mahavishnu, because he was glancing over the Pradhan, which is the undifferentiated totality of the material energy in a dormant state, he glanced over Pradhan, and he had a desire, two desires. One desire, this Chaya Devi, the shadow of my spiritual potency, she wants to do some service, and she doesn't have any service. He wanted to give her some service. Second, the living entities that are within the body of Mahavishnu during cosmic annihilation, I want them to experience the fullness of happiness. They're just in this susupti state right now. So, two desires. He doesn't do anything. She recognizes his desires, so she does something in service. The glance of Mahavishnu has a name. Shambhu is the glance of Mahavishnu. And to that glance of Mahavishnu, she entrusts two things. The totality of all living entities that are within the body of Mahavishnu, and the time energy. In the spiritual plane, the time energy is eternal. No past, present, future. For creation, there has to be an expansion or a transformation of that eternal time energy, Kala Shakti, so that there's past, present, future. So you can have creation, maintenance, and dissolution. So those two things, time and the living entities, are entrusted to by Ramadevi to the glance of Mahavishnu, and the living entities in the time energy are carried by his glance. That those two entities, time and living entities, totality of all living entities, are then injected into Pradhan. Pradhan is a state of Prakriti, material nature, the undifferentiated state called Pradhan. And then with the combination of those two, it's in essence, fundamentally, primordial impregnation. The material energy becomes activated and animated by those two things, the living entities and time. There's a whole other series of things that happens. That is, Mahavishnu breathes. And when he breathes, from the pores of his body come streaming as he exhales these seeds. They're not universes yet, but they're seeds of universes from the pores of his body, and they extend and they contact that now differentiated totality of material energy called Mahatattva. Now it just has, it's Prakriti, but just a different name. It's the same material energy. And the material energy starts to cling or conglomerate or congeal around the universes, so making a shell in 7 layers. Then inside each universe, Mahavishnu expands himself and becomes, that expansion becomes Garbho Dakshai Vishnu. Garbho Dakshai Vishnu perspires. It's hot in there, that universe. And from his body comes water. The perspiration water from his body fills up half the universe. Somehow he knows how when to stop perspiring. And it becomes the Garbhodak ocean, upon which Garbhodakshai Vishnu reclines. And Garbhodakshai Vishnu reclines on Anantashesh. And because the time energy is moving, he's not moved by the time energy, but the time energy is moving, and it's the bell ring. It's time for creation. And so he, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, generates from his navel a lotus stem, and then a lotus flower, and then Brahma appears on the surface of that lotus flower. Now, when Garbhodakshai Vishnu enters, listen to the detail, it's very important. When Garbhodakshai Vishnu enters, he carries with him, as Mahavishnu did, he carries within him 1 universe's worth of living entities. That's a lot of living entities. There's no bodies, just a lot of jivas. And one of those jivas within the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu is going to become the first Brahma in the universe. So he appears just like the painting, on the top of the lotus flower. And it's darkness in all directions. There's no sunlight, there's no moonlight, there's no electricity, nothing. There's no sound, there's no people, there's no Haribol Prabhu. It's like there's nothing. He's not lonely, but he's intelligent. And he starts to inquire. Some things that we should also inquire. Who am I? How did I get here? What am I supposed to be doing while I'm here? Inquiry into Brahman, Brahma Jigyasa. Then now we're in time as we know it, not eternal time, so events start to happen. In that inquisitiveness, he hears, as you see in the painting here, the sound of waves splashing. And it's below him. He's on top of this nice lotus flower. He climbs down the stem because he wants to find out where he came from. He climbs down, and climbs down, and climbs down, and he can't find an end to, because it's not that kind of a stem. Then he realizes, I'm not going to find out my origin this way. And he hears tapa, tapa 3 times. So he's ready to carry out, because he's intelligent, he understands it's just 2 syllables, but he knows what it means. There's no language, there's no books, there's no Sanskrit classes. It's just, he knows what it means. And we heard yesterday, he received 2 mantras. The first of the 2 mantras, this is all described in Brahma Samhita. It's also described in 2nd and 3rd cantos Bhagavatam. The first of the 2 mantras, he receives from the internal potency Saraswati, not goddess in the heavenly realm Saraswati. She's the prototype, and from her expansions come. This must be your home. Is this your home? No? You're just being very conscientious. A hostess that doesn't even live here. You're a mature young lady. Good for you. So he hears a mantra. One of our Gayatri mantras was his first Gayatri mantra, called Gopal mantra, or in Brihat Bhagavatamrita called Madan Gopal mantra. Same. And he knew what to do. He chanted the mantra. I mean, it's darkness in all directions. There's nothing to do, but no distraction in his chanting. He was very focused. And as he was chanting and chanting and chanting, something additional happened that's shown in this painting. He heard Krishna's flute. The sound went in his ear, came out his mouth in the form of another Gayatri, and by the combination of those two Gayatris, chanting and chanting, he became, according to the language of Sri Brahma Samhita, text 28, we read this yesterday, he became well acquainted with the ocean of truth, capital T. He became self-realized and God-realized. And then he spoke the Govinda prayers. So we're not that far yet. We're just at the text 1, but we're getting, here's another nice painting, shows essentially the same thing. There's the four-headed Brahma seated on his lotus, and there are other personalities in kind of the faded background of this painting, but they're also his well-wishers. And the mantra in the Kama Gayatri mantra, as well as this first verse of Sri Brahma Samhita, is about Govinda. So that's the painting. There's other universes, Vaikuntha planets, and there's Radha and Krishna at the center in Vrindavan. So here's a nice photograph of Bhaktisiddhanta. He had, sometimes he dressed very fancy, sometimes he dressed super simple. This is the super simple picture. And one nice devotee made arrangements to give me recordings of Prabhupada singing the Pranam mantras of Bhaktisiddhanta. So yesterday we recited them. Now we can recite them, but we can also listen to Prabhupada recite them, assuming it works. Somehow it's not working. It was working before I got here. What happened? Maybe I have it on. No? One moment, let's see if I can get technology to cooperate. What? Yeah, but it's supposed to come out of my computer, not out of the projector, not out of the screen. Let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, we'll just sing it, recite it together. Huh? You can hear it? Huh? Is there some way to make the volume here go up? Okay, we'll just do it again. Hey. So this first prana mantra is standard for all of us. And then?
Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayini Prabhavi Namaha.
Marshabhanavi Devi. Who's that? Huh? Rani. Dayataya, the servant of
Namam Vishnu Padaya Madhunasya Premadya. Namam Vishnu Padaya Namam Krishna Prasad Karuna Sakti Vigrahaya Namaste. Madhujala Premadya Virupanu Bhakti Sri Gauda Karuna Sakti Vigrahaya Namaste. Namaste Gauravani Srimate Vinatani Rupanu Gosira Japa Siddhanta Dhanta Adi.
Oh, that's nice. Prabhupada singing with clanging kartals. Pranam mantras of Bhaktisiddhanta. Uh-oh. Oh, gosh. Okay. Now we can chant this one together. Ishara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So, translation, Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Godhead. Parama. Ishvara Parama. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body, Satchitananda Vigraha. He is the origin of all. Anadir, Adir, he has no other origin. Sarvakarana Karanam, the prime cause of all causes. So I'm just going to go through a little bit some of the text that accompanies this verse. In the Sri Brahma Samhita, printed by the BBT and provided by Bhaktisiddhanta, there's a foreword. In the foreword, he speaks in a substantial way about this first verse. And he makes this strong statement that here, in this first verse, Brahma is decrying all kinds of speculative knowledge. So there's two kinds, descending and ascending. The ascending is speculative and descending is deductive, inductive, deductive. So it's just we hear, and from the proper source, and we have knowledge. And if even the subject is transcendental, we can know fully about transcendental topics beyond the range of the senses to see or to experience by this descending process. So it decries all kinds of speculative knowledge, and he goes through in the foreword two kinds: science, or mechanistic science, or causation science that says there's only one thing, matter, and the laws governing matter, and there isn't anything else. And if you want to know where does matter come from, the answer is it's eternal. It just exists. Just like you say God exists, matter exists. So there. And they stick out their tongue. Matter exists. And there's laws governing matter. And everything exists from matter and laws governing matter. That's it. We can explain everything from matter and the laws governing matter. Don't ask me where the laws come from. Don't ask me where does matter come from. Don't ask that, because they're primordial. That's it. That's the absolute truth. That's, some people speak like that. I mean, maybe not with that tone, but that's the view. And he goes through it in the foreword. Then there's the scientist and the impersonalist. The original cause of everything is devoid of personal attributes. The language that Bhaktisiddhanta uses is the entity beyond phenomena. The entity, so phenomena is what's manifest by matter, the phenomenal world. And there's an entity that's beyond phenomena. And that entity that's beyond phenomena has no personal attributes. Neti. If the phenomena has this quality, the source of that must not have that quality, which is counterintuitive. Meaning, if you're going to have something, where does it something come from? Something that doesn't have that something? Or something that has that something in its pure form? So anyway, that's the impersonalist and the materialist. That's in this category of speculative knowledge. They don't know what they're claiming to know, and they have a fundamental basis. And there, of course, there's n number of varieties and versions of those two, but those are two really big ones. And in his purport to the verse, not in the foreword, Bhaktisiddhanta writes, Ishvara Parama Krishna, the name Krishna, his language, implies his love-attracting designation. Love-attracting means, Krishna means to attract. Love-attracting designation. So he's indicating the name is a designation, and it's his love-attracting quality. Thus the name Krishna, expressing by his eternal nomenclature the acme of entity. Now he has interesting use of the English language, not usually the kind of conversational language that we're used to, but the acme means the topmost of entity. So rather than saying thing, this is entity. Very broad utilization of thing. Acme of entity, the Supreme Being. By his eternal nomenclature. That's Krishna's eternal, his name is eternal. And he's the acme of entity. He does have attributes. He has qualities, he has personality, he has form. Satchitananda Vigraha. He makes reference to a further verse explaining further about the name Krishna. This is a nice reference. The name of Krishna has these two parts, Krish and Na from Mahabharata. Krish is the attractive feature of the Lord's existence, and Na means spiritual pleasure, as in Ananda. It's a shortened form of Ananda. Spiritual pleasure, Krish, Na. When the verb Krish is added to Na, it becomes Krishna, which indicates the absolute truth. So this is a translation of a statement from Mahabharata. He, Bhaktisiddhanta, is using that reference to support the Acme entity message, or the Supreme Person, the absolute truth from which all of the truths come. Sarva Karana Karanam. And that person is has the name Krishna, or is of the name Krishna. Ishvara Parama Krishna. Sarva Karana Karanam. Back to the foreword that comes before the first verse, Bhaktisiddhanta makes a reference to Padma Purana, where there's a discussion between Narada and Krishnadwaj. There's the Sanskrit of the verse. Nam nam mukyatamam nama krishnakyam me paratapa. O conqueror of enemies, my name Krishna is the chief. Mukhya. Prabhupada named one of his female disciples Mukhya. She's the president in Alachua. Imagine being the president in Alachua. Phew. Mukhya. So the non-feminine is Mukhya. Of all Krishna's names, the chief amongst all his names is Krishna. And Narada is claiming that Krishna makes this statement. So it's the chief names indicating the chief person, the Supreme Person. And next, to spend a little bit of time on Jiva Goswami's 13-page commentary. I don't know if you like reading Jiva Goswami. You kind of have to like detail, otherwise you're not going to like Jiva Goswami's commentaries. Here's his methodology, 13 pages worth. He takes each and every word. He takes the word, holds it up, looks at it through different angles, gives scriptural explanation of why this is a valid angle to look at. He gives multiple scriptural references to support that angle of looking at that particular word. He takes each word and holds it up in the air, puts the words together, takes the explanations and repacks it again. 13 pages. Because it's such an important verse. He doesn't do this with all, but this first verse is a very important one. So we're going to spend a little bit of time taking some examples. One, there's going to be three. Ishvara Parama. Ishvara, he spends some time. What does Ishvara mean? We know what Ishvara means. And then he indicates there's a capacity within each entity to have some capacity to control. And that capacity to control comes from the Supreme, who controls all who have capacity to control. And then comes the adjective Parama. Ishvara Parama. And Pari and Ma. There's two divisions. He indicates this Ma in Parama indicates his internal potencies, or the goddess of fortune. And the goddess of fortune, who's with Krishna in Vrindavan, because next is going to come Govinda, it's the gopis. And then that's the taking the word, the Parama word, after taking the Ishvara word, breaking it down, explaining it, giving scriptural references to verify and support what he's saying. Some of you are familiar with Chaitanya Charitamrita, which does the same thing. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this really nice explanation I like, that it describes the Shaktiman and Shakti, the possessor of potencies and the potencies. Shaktiman and Shakti. And the Shaktiman is the possessor of potencies. And as the supreme potent, supreme Shaktiman is Krishna, he has his Shaktis. Shaktiman has Shaktis. And the internal Shakti, there's marginal and there's external, but the internal Shakti is Radharani. And from Radharani comes many expansions, and he lists them. The queens, the gopis, these associates of the gopis. In the spiritual realm, there's diversity amongst his internal potencies. They're expansions of the original Srimati Radharani. They're all her expansions. They're all her expansions. And that's the declaration of Krishnadas Kaviraj, and there's lots of support, starting with this nice explanation of what does parama mean. I mean, ma, specifically in the English, one of the translations of his commentary, ma means mother, like ma, mama, mama. Anyway, parama means Krishna's not alone. And then he gives us scriptural references. And not right away, he's not going to put it back into the suitcase, but he's going to go through all the nomenclatures of this first verse. And it's like a visual image for me is, here's a ball of cotton. Come on in. Here's a ball of cotton. And what makes up the ball of cotton? Ask your son. What makes up the ball of cotton? Yeah, well, what makes it up? What are the parts that make up the ball of cotton? You're not sure. Little fibers, right? You take a cotton and just pull it and pull it and pull it and keep pulling it, you get little fibers. That's what cotton is. I mean, that's what your shirt is. You know, they did something with it. They made it into a thread, and then the thread made a cloth, and the cloth made a shirt. But it's just strands of cotton. So that's what he does. Bhakti Siddhanta and Jiva Goswami especially, he's taking out this strand, and before he puts the shirt or the giwik or whatever is going to be with those strands. So the Ishvara Parama Krishna strands he pulls out. Here's another example. Simple. Whoops. Govinda, he makes this statement. This is his methodology. He makes a statement. He explains his statement. He gives scriptural references to support his statement, and then he summarizes it again. Then he goes on to the next term. So he's going to explain term by term, 13 pages. That's his methodology. So since Govinda, although the reference is Ishvara Parama Krishna, really the verse is focusing on that feature of Krishna that's Govinda. Satchitananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda. He's the original, who has no other origin. Since Govinda is the central subject of this verse, he then gives a definition of Govinda. We've heard the definition so many times, we just accept it because it's true. But then he unpacks it, and the strands of cotton fiber are held up in the air. So he takes 4 scriptural references to support the statement what Govinda means. He who satisfies or gives pleasure to the senses, go, or to the cows, go, Govinda. So from 10th canto, this place, that place. What is the meaning of Govinda? How do we understand the meaning of Govinda from the context of Scripture? There's dictionary. There's etymology of the word, way in which the word is derived. And then there's scriptural references. He's really thorough. And then he's going to go to who's Govinda in relation to Krishna, or Krishna after he leaves Vrindavan. And he makes the statement, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. Govinda, that aspect of Krishna, never leaves Vrindavan. For that matter, he never enters Vrindavan. He just manifests himself in Vrindavan. And sometimes he doesn't uppercut feature, but he never leaves Vrindavan. And then he makes his argument, then he gives scriptural references, and then he holds it up again and makes the statement once again. So here's more or less a translation from what he's written in his commentary on this verse. Krishna appears in Mathura with 4 arms. This is Vasudeva Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Then his father takes him to Gokula, where he does not have 4 arms, but 2. And he has a flute. In Gokula, he is tending cows, Govinda. There he is known as Govinda. Later, Vasudeva Krishna, not Govinda, leaves Vrindavan and goes back to Mathura, then to Dwarka, and then many other places. Govinda, however, never leaves the cows. He's always in Vrindavan. So he's taking this first verse and unpacking it. You know, what if you when you unpack the verse, what's there? And being the personality that he is, and the scholar that he is, and the lover of Radha Krishna that he is, he explains it in his own way. The upcoming verses discuss in detail about Vrindavan. So there's the person, and then there's his abode, and then there's his associates, and there's activities with the associates. This is all packed up very neatly in Sri Brahma Samhita. How Govinda, along with all the other residents, reside there, how both Govinda and the Brajvasis never leave Vrindavan, even if there's a Leela, and it appears as if they leave, but they never do. Now, we're very familiar with these teachings, because they're the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which Jiva Goswami not only put in writing, but he explained them forwards and backwards and sideways, and in the front door and in the back door and down the chimney and through the window, and any way you can get in there, he gives this explanation. And so we go, all right. Krishna leaves Vrindavan, I got it. But he's establishing it in his writings firmly. And here's our last slide for this class. This is a little summary of the first verse. This is being called the introductory verse. The Paribhasha Sutra establishes Krishna as the absolute truth, or the Acme entity, or Parama Ishvara. Specifically, the verse refers to Govinda, who resides in Vrindavan eternally, playing upon his flute, tending the cows, and doing wonderful deeds in his medium size. Medium size is Bhaktisiddhanta's language. What does medium size mean? Not too tall, not too small. It's in reference to the Upanishads that says the Supreme Lord is simultaneously bigger than biggest and smaller than the smallest, which we can't do because that's a contradiction. We can be big, maybe not bigger than the biggest, but we can be big, or we can be small. Can't be smaller than the smallest, but Krishna can be both simultaneously. So you can't have deity worship of Paramatma. You can't have deity worship of the universal form. Too big. So medium size means human-like. He appears in this medium size. So we can relate to him as a person and offer things to him and decorate him and so forth. That's his language, medium size. Human-like form. Tending to cows, doing wonderful deeds in his medium size. The human-like form makes him approachable, and therefore worldly persons may think, oh, he's just one of us. Perhaps a better version, but one of us nonetheless. But he's not one of us. He is almighty. Yet he is in this very simple setting as Govinda, the tender of the cows, playing upon his flute, in the transcendental land of Vrindavan, giving pleasure to the cows. This is his original setting, along with Nanda, Yashoda, Balaram, enjoying pastime with his beloved cows, cowherd boys, the gopis, river Jamuna, the peacocks, and the land of Vrindavan. Because upcoming, there'll be a substantial description of the abode of Krishna. The abode of Krishna enters conceptually and sequentially into the meditation process of Lord Brahma. He heard these mantras. He hasn't yet gotten, fully acquainted with the ocean of truth. He hasn't gotten full self-realization and realization of Krishna. He's just getting started. As it moves forward in these verses, in addition to chanting his mantra, he meditates on a yantra. What's a yantra? Literally, yantra means machine, like Bhagavad Gita. Yantra rudhani mayaya. The material energy is like a machine, situated on a machine. Living entity is moving. You sit in your car and just sitting there, but you can go, 60 miles an hour, but you're just sitting there. Because the machine is moving, so you're moving. That's yantra. That's one of the meanings of yantra. Another meaning of yantra is like this. A yantra is a two-dimensional depiction of the spiritual realm, which is not two-dimensional, but it's a two-dimensional depiction. And in the case of Lord Brahma, he engaged in meditating on his yantra while chanting his mantra. It was a two-pronged. So meditating for us, it's meditating whatever you meditate on. In addition to the name or the form of the name, you may see a form of your deity or something. May not. But the procedure that he followed was this meditating upon yantra, which is, once again, it's a two-dimensional depiction of Vaikuntha. Notice there's a Star of David at the center, or the six-pointed star. This six-pointed star is described in Brahma Samhita. It's the mantra. It's one of the mantras that he received. The Gopal mantra. There's six parts, not six syllables, but six parts to the mantra. And he understood what the parts were because he's very intelligent. And he was meditating on his mantra while envisioning a yantra. Now here's not just envisioning, but there it is. And at the center of the yantra is the bija syllable of the mantra. What's a bija syllable? Om, for example, is a bija syllable. Omkar. Bija. Omkar. And some of the bija syllables are other bija syllables. They're just standard parts of the Sanskrit language. And in the mantras that he was chanting, both of them, it's the sound indicates Radha Krishna together. There's details and details, but that's the sound vibration is at the center, Radha Krishna. And then there's, aside from the center, there's what's around the center. The concentric circles, you can say, around the center. And it's, in short, it's the abode of Radha Krishna in a two-dimensional depiction that corresponds with the mantra. So they go well together. The yantra, that's a two-dimensional depiction of Krishna's abode. And the mantra, which is the sound representation of Krishna and Krishna's abode. And by doing the two together, being very, very qualified, we can try to do those two things and we'll get distracted quickly. But he wasn't distracted because there was nothing to be distracted by. Darkness in all directions. Nothing. Some of you have been to Mayapur. And those of you that have been to Mayapur, for sure, you saw Lord Nrsingadev. And at least you've seen photographs of Lord Nrsingadev. And notice those two brass plates in the front of Lord Nrsingadev. See them? There's the close-up of them. That's a Nrsinga yantra. In traditional worship, in the agamas, there is this traditional worship of deity that includes yantra of the deity. So this is Lord Nrsingadev in his spiritual abode in a two-dimensional depiction. And each of the inscriptions on this brass plate are details and details and details of the mantra and depicting the abode of Lord Nrsingadev in the spiritual realm. So this is the yantra that Brahma used, or a depiction of it. And other than a brass plate, here's the description made in a color-coded depiction. And here's what it says in Devanagari. What's at the center, the 6 sides of the hexagonal mantra, and different bija mantras as well. And then surrounding that, there's the abodes of the principal gopis, and surrounding that, there's more petals and more petals and more petals. The more petals are depicting two-dimensionally the residences with Krishna in Vrindavan. There's Radha with him at the center, depicted through sound, or depicted through a two-dimensional yantra along with the mantra. And then there's details and details of the abode. It's meditation on the abode, Krishna, and his abode. Nice, huh? That's what Brahma did. We're going to hear as we go along. And then there's the other syllables within the mantra that just appeared. Notice they went away. Now here they are again. And you put it together in this nice poster form, and this is what the poster form looked like. But the poster form is the same as the yantra, which is the same as the mantra, which is the spiritual world where Krishna resides. So there's a whole section. In addition to the form of Krishna and the personality of Krishna, there's the abode of Krishna. And that's, coming up in Sri Brahma Samhita. Interesting. Through sound, just through sound. So most of us are pretty dull, and we don't have the capacity to understand all these things just by hearing. He did. And then it was written. We mentioned this yesterday. I'll mention it again. I did a little research that I said I would do. Brahma Vaivarta. Someone asked a question. There's 62 verses in chapter 5. How many verses are there total in the 100 chapters? Someone asked that question. And I said I didn't know. But maybe Brahma Vaivarta Purana will tell, because the Brahma Vaivarta Purana doesn't give the 100 chapters. It mentions Brahma Samhita. So here's the reference. Doesn't say how many chapters, doesn't say how many verses per chapter. It just, there's reference to 5 Pancharatras and 5 Samhitas, and gives them by name in Brahma Vaivarta Purana. In other words, at one time it was of complete literature, and what was remaining in Adi Keshava Temple was chapter 5. But somehow it became known, this is the most important chapter. Within it is the Paribhasha Sutra, and within it is pretty much a summary of the 12 cantos of Bhagavatam in a sutra-like form, samhita form, sutra-like form. But it's a particular type of literature, not a sutra, it's a samhita. And then the other reference, along with the 5 samhitas, there's 5 Pancharatras. We're familiar, somewhat familiar, at least we're engaged in deity worship according to the Narada Pancharatra, from which our worship procedures are drawn scripturally. That's the scriptural source. Why we do what we do, how we do what we do, from that source. So these two, the Samhitas and Pancharatras, they're in a certain category of Vedic literature, but they're Vedic. Just as the Puranas are Vedic and the Itihasas are Vedic, and certainly the Shrutis are Vedic, but they're all different branches or divisions or parts of the Vedas. So the Brahma Samhita is Vedic. This is a particular artist's depiction of what Srimad Bhagavatam says, which is in essence form in Sri Brahma Samhita. The Sri Brahma Samhita is, in one sense, it's certainly not for beginners because it's a very elevated subject. On the other hand, as I mentioned yesterday, Srila Prabhupada gave us the recording of the Sri Brahma Samhita Govinda prayers, like, in the 3rd year of the Hare Krishna movement, when we didn't know much about anything. We knew something, but not much about anything. And he gave us the Brahma Samhita prayers, and recited in the recording of the Sri Brahma Samhita prayers that we should recite it daily, as a regular daily function. And some devotees take that seriously. Some devotees I know do that seriously every day, at least the Govinda prayers every day. And so when you do something like that every day, what happens? It goes in. And not only the sound goes in, but the meaning goes in, or as Prabhupada, enter into the spirit of the hymn. So you don't have to do that. But if you do that, it's something that Prabhupada advised, and it has its spiritual fruit. We're often too busy, or maybe too lazy, or both. But it's a spiritual exercise that's very sweet. Okay, so that's it for Sri Brahma Samhita, verse number 1. Let's see if there's some discussion. The magical microphone and the magical microphone bearers here.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. The last part of your presentation, you have shown the different types of yantras. And around those yantra circles, there are so many sounds, not only Om, but others like Hrim, Sring,
Yeah.
Kling. And so, sometime in India, I used to see some pandits pronouncing all these sounds, and I used to think just they are making up some sounds. So I didn't know about that. So now, you said like these are the seed. Are all of these are like seed mantras? Or?
Yes. And the seeds indicate something. That's like Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. Pranava, that's Om. But there's other, besides Om, there's other seed sounds or bija sounds. And they're indicating something much more than just that sound. So
Are they like representing different deities? Like Om is like
no, not they're not different deities. Using Bhaktisiddhanta's language, different entities, or things, or persons, or places, or combination. So a lot depends upon the chanter. The Krishna reveals himself according to the consciousness of his devotee. So there are those kinds of generic sounds or spiritual sounds, spiritual vibrations, that reveal to the chanter of that vibration their heart's desire in relation to the absolute, the realm of the absolute. They're broad.
Okay.
It's hard to restrain a discerning person to not use the yardsticks of material discernment with spiritual subject matters. But that's the challenge, part of the challenge.
Hare Krishna. My question is,
Go ahead.
we can hear you. Yantra is powerful. So Prana Pratishtha is also powerful. Vigraha Prana Pratishtha. In the temple, they do the Prana Pratishtha for the Vigraha. Moola Virats.
You understand what he's asking? What's he asking? Help me. Pran Pratishtha.
Is
that also powerful?
Yeah.
Why in ISKCON they are not doing the Prana Pratishtha when idols are putting?
When what happens? It certainly happens with, it happens. Certain ceremonies it happens. Not every time we do something that is it done. But there are times when it's appropriate and it's done. It's done. I assure you it's done. You want a recording so you can make sure that what I'm saying is true? Okay, it happens.
I didn't see that.
I
didn't see. I didn't see Prabhu. That's why I'm asking.
Okay. Pran Pratishtha.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have two questions, Maharaj. One is on this yantra. So Brahma envisioned this yantra as he was meditating. So Vyasadeva was able to give us this yantra also as part of the Brahma Samhita. How did this come into being for us?
The procedure of how it came into being, I don't know. We can say, reasonably, this is reason, it's not authoritative statement. Reasonably, it was revealed to some qualified persons. Maybe to Brahma, but if it was revealed to Brahma, how did it get to the next one? So maybe Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyasa, etc.
Okay.
But known to at least Brahma, and not necessarily that he had this brass plate like we saw. But it very more likely, my understanding at least, is more like it was within his mind. He had this very subtle and powerful and controlled mind, and he could envision in his mind yantra while meditating on the mantra. We'd be all over the place. To speak of distracted, we'd be mush.
Yeah.
But he was capable.
My
So
other
he
question.
both because they're the same thing using a different sense, the eye sense and the ear sense on the same object, the absolute truth, or the abode of the absolute truth, because that's what this is depicting, the abode of Krishna. Go ahead.
My other question is about the Paribhasha Sutra. So the author, whoever is writing the book, already gives us the Paribhasha Sutra, or our acharyas realize that is the Paribhasha Sutra and reveal to us?
My understanding is, in response to your question, it's not that the author says, this is the Paribhasha Sutra for this text. They don't announce it.
Yeah.
But there's a principle in composition. Like, Rupa Goswami didn't say, this is, or Vyasadeva Bhagavatam doesn't say, this is, but it is there.
Okay.
And there's characteristics, and some have realized and confirmed with other realized and confirmed with other realized, and now we come to accept this is the Paribhasa, not Bhashya. Bhashya means commentary. Bhasha Sutra for a text. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I don't know how to frame this question, but I would try my best.
It's
to ask.
elevated subject matter, so my apologies, but I like it.
Maharaj, beautiful class and very deep explanations. When you were talking about the detail of Garbhodaksha, Vishnu, how the universes are created and how the souls came into and Brahma came in.
Yes.
Like when we teach the kids on Mahajans, Swayambur, Narada Shambhu, Swayam.
Yes.
So is that Brahma same as what you...
Yes.
I'm just trying to clarify.
Swayam Bhu means self-born. And that's Brahma. Self-born means he didn't have a mother. Self-born. What living entity doesn't have a mother? Swayambhu. The same.
And then the universes and the souls got created. So,
No, bodies, not souls.
okay.
Big difference.
I mean, I'm a little confused here because like Krishna reveals like there are so many Brahmas, like four-headed.
So many what?
So many Brahmas, like
Yeah,
four-headed
there's
Brahmas.
so many universes.
So, are these two Brahmas the same?
Nice question.
Yes, Maharaj.
Now I got your question. It's a post. And some living entity, some jiva occupies the post. Got to be a super duper qualified jiva. Supposing there isn't a super duper qualified jiva, according to scripture, and don't ask me, can you give some examples, because I don't know. Sometimes there isn't a qualified jiva, so Vishnu himself takes the post. So let's go back to your question. It's a post. And someone occupies the post. Each universe has got to have a Brahma, or Lord Brahma. So there's someone that takes that position. Qualified someone. Jiva taking the position. And what's he supposed to do? He's supposed to engage in creation. He's the Lord of that, the Ishwara of that function of creation. And he lives for the duration of the creation. And then he leaves this Lord Brahma body. He becomes a jiva that goes where jivas that serve the Supreme Lord faithfully their entire existence. For in his case, it's the duration of the universe. He's super purified. Does that address your question? Not exactly. You got another one, I can tell.
No, Maharaj.
What's the one after that one?
No. I'm good, Maharaj. Thank you for
You're
the
good,
explanation.
okay. In the back.
Guru Maharaj, this on topic of this yantra, this one is two-dimensional. I've also seen the three-dimensional, like the pyramid. Look, the pyramid-looking ones. So I was trying to see what's the difference.
It's the angle of vision. Supposing you look at the pyramid from up above, what do you see? 2 dimensions.
Mm.
You follow? It's the same thing depicted in a different dimension. What about the spiritual dimension? There isn't 2, it isn't 3. What is it? It's the spiritual planet. That these are depictions on the physical plane of something that's not physical.
So I have a question. I was given like this yantra before I began my Krishna consciousness.
Okay, good.
I didn't know what it meant, so it was, I had it in my altar. But after beginning Krishna consciousness, I've kept it respectfully, like in a safe place. So what should I do, or what is
It depends on what the yantra is the yantra of. There's different. Here's a Nrsinga yantra, and they're matching. There's one on the left, one on the right side, and it's different than this one. So it depends on. It's the yantra of what? I don't either. But there are some devotees that are really tuned into esoteria, and you could send them a photograph of it and ask them. And then once they tell you what it is, then what are you going to do? But at least you can know what it is. It's possible to know what it is. A person who is likely to know is a Prabhupada disciple named Gaura Keshava. If you're really interested, remind me, and I'll send you Gaura Keshava's email address. You send him, a few photos so it's clear what the yantra is, and ask him A and B. What is it? And B, how do I use it in my worship? And then he'll ask you like 10 questions. What kind of worship you do? And, so you may want to preempt. I do this kind of worship. I'm this stage in my Krishna bhakti, and he may chastise. He's an interesting person, very knowledgeable. Krishna Kshetra Swami is another one who may know. He's a little softer. Doesn't have a stick in his hand. Gaura Keshava sometimes does. But very knowledgeable. And if he doesn't know, he'll tell you, I don't know. A third is Janani Vas. There are some people that know these esoteric things. I don't. If you're interested, I can give you all 3 email addresses and you can send an email and see what happens.
Thank you.
They may not answer. They may be like busy with so many things, and here's somebody I don't even know, and you can use my name and say, I got your name and address. Can you help me with this? Don't expect an answer. If you get an answer, nice. And then you at least know what it is, and if you wanted to use it, how to use it. But don't. If it's just curiosity, then that's something else. If it's something that you think it would be useful for your spiritual activities, Krishna gave it to you. Maybe I should be using it in my bhakti. Anyway, there's an answer to your question.
Thank
Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, in the summary slide of Jiva Goswami's commentary that Maharaj explained, the Vasudeva Krishna never leaves, no, he leaves the Vrindavan. Govinda does not leave Vrindavan. Even Vrajavasis never leaves Vrindavan, even for pastimes.
Well, that almost. They go to Kurukshetra.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask for pastimes. And also,
got your number.
and Guru Maharaj, also Krishna also physically leaves the Vrindavan to Mathura back after the Vrindavan pastime.
Yes, he does. But it's Vasudeva, not Govinda.
And then where does the Govinda at that time?
He is in an uppercut feature.
Unmanifested. Okay.
No
Well,
problem for him.
I have one other question, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
The mantra meditation.
These are Stump the Swami questions.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Mantra meditation, Guru Maharaj. It's each syllable, even for the bija and everything, has a meaning. So are we
Don't worry about
supposed
it.
to
Don't worry about
meditate
it.
on the meaning?
Understand the principle, and if you really want to get into the esoteric, you can write to the same people she may want to write to. I don't know the esoteria. This applies in this case, that applies in that case.
I'm asking for Gayatri mantras, Guru Maharaj.
So it's Radha Krishna.
Okay.
It's Radha Krishna. There's the answer. Okay?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. You had a question, right? Over here.
Maharaj, when we are talking about the Paribhasha Sutra,
Yeah.
does it usually refer to a specific verse or
Yes,
a
it
principle
does.
within the verse?
No, it's the verse. A specific verse and the different parts to each verse. That's the Paribhasa Sutra. We mentioned 3 of them yesterday. You were here.
Yeah.
So it's the verse. It's not just a word within the verse. It's the verse.
And is it similar to the Charma Sloka that we
Yes,
referred to?
exactly. Exactly. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I have a question about the souls. When does souls enter into the universe? Is that when Karnodaksha Vishnu
Hold the
impregnates
microphone a
Pradhan?
little further away because there's a feedback. Your voice is strong, which is good. Go ahead.
My question about the souls. When does souls enter into the universe? So is that Karnodaksha Vishnu impregnates Pradhan, that time souls enter universe, or Garbhodaksha Vishnu?
No. Mahavishnu does that, not Garbhodaksha Vishnu does that.
Karnodaksha.
Mahavishnu or Mahavishnu. Karanadakshayi Vishnu, same, synonymous. Impregnates Prakriti or Pradhan. And then the living entities that are carried by the glance of Mahavishnu, one universe worth of those living entities enters into each universe, along with Garbhodaksha Vishnu. How many living entities are there? Innumerable. Some finite number, but too many to count, therefore innumerable. And the samasti is the totality of all living entities, which is a really big number. When Garbhodaksha Vishnu is expanded into each universe, Garbhodaksha Vishnu carries with him into each universe one universe's worth of jivas. And then things start to happen. Does that help? Does that answer your question? You look puzzled.
I was thinking about after Pradhan, Prakriti, various manifestations happen, right?
Prakriti is the general term, and then there's features of Prakriti. And two were mentioned, Pradhan and Mahatattva. But those are just stages or conditions of Prakriti. Prakriti, Prakriti, Prakriti. This label, that label, it's all Prakriti. Or external energy. Bahiranga Shakti, the material energy. All those terms are synonymous. And then there's specific Sanskrit terms that apply to a particular state or condition or stage of Prakriti. And then you a different title or an adjective.
So when we say souls are impregnated into Prakriti, so it's not, that's not right.
It's not what?
So when we usually say like, Mahavishnu impregnates Prakriti with souls, so souls are not entered into Prakriti yet.
Yes, they enter.
Not.
Yes, they enter.
Enter, okay.
They enter. It's impregnation.
I'm seeing a Prakriti different from Garbhodaksha Vishnu. That's where my confusion.
Well, Prakriti is different. They're not the same tattva.
So souls are in the Prakriti, and again,
the tattvas are different. In doesn't mean you are. We're in the room. We're not the room. Make a distinction. That's what intelligence does. Discerns this from that. So there's different tattvas interacting. The living entities become influenced by and may take on qualities of material nature, but they're not material nature. They're under the influence of, in the conditioned state. So make distinctions, please. That's all. That's the intelligence, is discerning this from that. So living entities enter into doesn't mean they become. They enter into. That's impregnation. You got another question following up that one. I can see the wheels turning. And
I was thinking about, you also said Garbhodaksha Vishnu carries souls into universe.
Well, let's do it this way. Rather than he carries, he is, when Mahavishnu is the quarterback, he's calling the play. And the quarterback gives the ball to the halfback, and the halfback runs into this, line of people. So he, Mahavishnu, entrusts Garbhodaksha Vishnu with one universe's worth of living entities out of the totality of living entities. And how many universes are there? Too many to count. How many similar number of Garbhodaksha Vishnus? How many living entities within each universe? Too many to count. But there's a cause and effect. There's a principle. There's a tattva that's the causative principle. And Garbhodaksha Vishnu has a function. All the Vishnu forms have a function in relation to creation. So try to get unbewildered. Just understand their function, and according to the will of Govinda or Krishna, they do their function for the purpose of creation, fulfilling his desire. The desire is very simple. Living entities should have fullest happiness, fullest potential of consciousness. That's his desire, the Supreme Lord. And then sometimes they say, no, I want to be the enjoyer over here. Okay, good luck. Roll the dice, see what happens. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. You have something, and then over here. And then we're done. You have something also? No. I see him over there. I'm asking, Prabhu, you have a question or no? No, okay. We have 2-1. Then we're going to be, and
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you mentioned about the nuts.
Okay, shh. Go ahead.
You mentioned about the Narsimha Jantra, and you said that that depicts the abode of Lord Narsimha Dev. So,
Yes.
so that's an eternal abode where Narsimha always lives.
Yeah,
And so he existed before Prahlad Maharaj.
of course. He's eternal.
So then, how do we understand that he took that form
Why
just
not?
for Prahlad Maharaj?
He just manifested it. He doesn't need anybody's permission. It's an eternally existing form. And he manifested that form. What's the problem? He has an abode. He has a form in that abode. He manifested that form and protected Prahlad. And it doesn't have to only show it for Prahlad. What do you think? Should I give you some other descriptions where Lord Nrsimhadev appears other than to protect Prahlad? There's examples.
Before Prahlad Maharaj.
Yeah, well, not whether it's before or after. The form is eternal. He can manifest and withdraw because the form is eternal. These are avatars. Do avatars exist before they appear? Yes, they're eternal. And there's a pastime of appearing. From where do they come? From their eternal abode. Where do they go? Their eternal abode. They're eternally existing in their eternal abode. No problem. Whether it's Prahlad or someone else or someone else.
I heard this story when Narsimha was, he was thinking what form to take. So that's why I was confused. Like, so he
was pulling
took
out
that
his
form
chin
there
saying,
itself.
He's in eternal form. The description may be what the description may be, because Hiranyakashipu got a pledge, and he appeared in a form that didn't contradict the pledge or the promise or the words of Lord Brahma. He appeared in that form. There's how many forms? And a number of forms. And he select from the menu that one. It's an eternal form that exists in the spiritual world. Over here? Back there. Put your hand up again. Yes. Huh? No, I thought you said yes. Okay.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
You're just waving before, I guess. Huh? Okay, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
You get the last question.
Thank you, Guru
That was
Maharaj.
a good one.
So one of the slides had the original cause from which everything emanates is devoid of any personal attributes.
That's a Mayavad idea. What you're repeating is Jiva Goswami commentary as part of his 13-page commentary, saying that from the get-go, this first verse of Sri Brahma Samhita is refuting these atheistic views. One is the scientist and the other is the impersonalist. This one you're referring to is the impersonalist view. It's not the conclusion of the scripture. It's the impersonalist view.
So that's what is being. So
That's what it means. And the first verse is refuting it, without all the argument and elaborate stuff. It's just boom. Ishvara Parama Krishna. With form, Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Dismissing that argument. Boldly, strongly.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki. Gaur Premanandi.